Welcome to the Mystery Vault. Across the deepest forests, the tallest mountains, and the most remote corners of national parks around the world, thousands of people vanish every single year. Most disappearances are tragic but explainable: a wrong turn, hypothermia, wild animals, natural hazards. But then there are the others. Cases so strange, so impossible, so violently contradictory to the laws of nature, that rangers, investigators, and search teams have no words for what they encounter. People who vanish in seconds, right in front of witnesses. Children found miles away in places no human could climb. Shoes neatly placed as if someone stepped out of reality itself. Bodies appearing days later in areas searched dozens of times. Electronics dead, clothing folded, and no trace of struggle. These cases break logic, they break physics, they break reality. Some investigators suggest a terrifying hypothesis. These disappearances are not random, they are geographically patterned. They occur near magnetic anomalies, ancient rock formations, deep cave systems, and areas with long histories of tribal legends warning humans to stay away. A growing number of researchers call these locations thin places, regions where the veil between dimensions, the boundaries of space and time, weakens just enough for something inexplicable to occur. And in the darkest corners of alternative science, a theory has taken shape. The missing are not lost, they crossed a threshold. A dimensional gate. Rangers avoid talking about these cases. Official reports bury them under vague wording. Maps quietly mark certain zones as restricted, dangerous, or environmentally sensitive. Yet hikers continue to vanish, leaving only impossible clues behind, like footsteps that stop abruptly on flat ground, or voices heard moments after a person disappears. If these stories were isolated, nobody would believe them. But they are not isolated, they form patterns that point to something ancient, intelligent, and entirely beyond human understanding. Tonight, we descend into these cases, those the public was never meant to hear, where the missing left behind evidence not of death but of passage. A passage into the fourth dimension. When you examine the most baffling disappearances across national parks, a disturbing pattern begins to emerge. Cases separated by decades, even continents, yet united by the same impossible details. Rangers call them Type 0 cases, events where logic collapses and the environment itself becomes the enemy. One of the most chilling examples occurred in the Great Smoky Mountains. A young boy vanished while walking only a few steps ahead of his family. No sound, no cry for help, no movement in the bushes. Search teams found footprints leading into soft soil, then stopping abruptly, as if the child had been lifted straight into the air. Dogs brought to the scene refused to track the scent, barking wildly before retreating in fear, an extremely rare reaction for trained search animals. Thousands of miles away in British Columbia, an experienced hiker disappeared near a cluster of ancient granite pillars. Her backpack, boots, and jacket were discovered neatly arranged in a perfect circle, as if intentionally placed. The surrounding snow showed no footprints, not her own, nor anyone else's. Investigators described the area as disturbingly silent, with no birds, no wind, no natural movement for hours. Then there's the Mount Shasta incident. A man vanished during a small group hike. He reappeared days later, miles away, dazed and dehydrated, insisting he had been pulled into a room of light, where time passed differently. Medical tests showed he had no injuries, no trauma, and no memory gaps, except for the missing days. His GPS watch, however, told another story. The device recorded impossible elevation changes, sharp directional shifts, and moments where movement ceased entirely, despite his heart rate spiking. These cases were dismissed as confusion, human error, or hoaxes, but to alternative investigators, the similarities are too precise to ignore. Footprints that end abruptly, perfectly folded clothing, electronics failing simultaneously, animals refusing to track scents, sudden atmospheric changes, cold pockets, static, pressure drops, witnesses reporting flashes of white light or distortion in the air. These anomalies align with old indigenous legends describing places where the world bends, areas believed to be entrances to other realms or territories of non-human entities. Some tribes warned that certain mountains and valleys belonged to beings of the crossing, protectors or predators of thresholds between worlds. Modern physicists studying dimensional theory argue that under extreme conditions, locations on Earth might experience spatial distortion, temporary warping of electromagnetic fields, or shifts in gravitational alignment. If such areas exist, they could theoretically create natural gateways, brief openings between our reality and another dimension. And if a human happens to be in the wrong place at the wrong moment, they may simply vanish. But the deeper we go, the stranger it becomes, because some who disappear return. The strangest and most unsettling cases are not the ones where people vanish, but the ones where they come back. In 1978, a park ranger in Utah encountered a teenage boy wandering barefoot in the snow, dazed and unable to speak. He had disappeared 3 days earlier while hiking with friends. According to official reports, he was found in an area that had been searched repeatedly by helicopters, dogs, and ground teams. His feet showed no cuts, no frostbite, no signs of travel, yet he was miles from where he vanished. When finally able to speak, he described a buzzing in the air, followed by what he called a door opening inside the cold. He claimed that he stepped forward instinctively, then found himself in a silent, glowing space where time didn't feel real. He remembered moving without walking, seeing figures that watched but didn't approach, and hearing a distant low-frequency hum that vibrated through his bones. Doctors dismissed his story as trauma-induced hallucination, but his body told a different story: no dehydration, no hypothermia, no malnutrition. It was as if he had not been missing at all. Similar accounts appear in the Missing 411 files, children who vanish for days only to be found unharmed, describing big animals walking upright, tunnels of light, or floating lights that talked without moving. Their stories are impossible, and yet always eerily consistent. In Yosemite, a seasoned outdoorsman disappeared while photographing a cliffside. His camera was recovered on a ledge, but the final image showed a strange heat-like distortion in the air behind him, despite the weather being cold and still. Search teams found no tracks leading away from the site, as if he stepped directly into the distortion captured in the photo. Some investigators believe these individuals experienced dimensional slip, entering a brief unstable corridor between worlds, what physicists call a space-time irregularity, and what many tribes have long described as crossing points. Other theorists suggest something more intelligent is involved. Entities capable of manipulating the environment, confusing senses, or even imitating familiar sounds to lure individuals into the threshold. There are dozens of cases where hikers report hearing a loved one's voice calling for help, only to later learn that person was nowhere near the area. But perhaps the most disturbing detail shared among all these cases is the same chilling phrase spoken by several who returned: "I wasn't supposed to see what was on the other side." Whatever these people witnessed, whatever they crossed, left them changed, frightened and convinced that the world we see is only a fraction of what truly exists. And if the stories are true, then the fourth dimension gate isn't a metaphor, it's a reality hiding in the quietest places on Earth. If these stories are true, if humans have stumbled into rifts, corridors, or gateways into another dimension, then the question becomes terrifyingly simple. Is the fourth dimension choosing who crosses, or are we? Across every national park tied to these cases, investigators have found the same haunting markers: unexplained magnetic spikes, sudden drops in temperature, radio malfunctions, and precise geometric patterns in the landscape, almost as if the environment itself is shaped to open and close these gateways. Some physicists propose that extreme geological pressure, combined with electromagnetic anomalies, could create temporary distortions in space-time. But others, those who have studied ancient indigenous lore, suggest something more deliberate: For centuries, tribes warned that certain forests and mountains were alive, that they shifted, that they took those who walked wrongly under the sky. What if these places are not cursed, but active? Modern witnesses describe shimmering air, vanishing paths, sudden silence, echoes of distant voices, and moments where the world blurs, like a glitch in reality. Many believe these are signs of a dimensional threshold, brief openings where two worlds overlap. But the most unsettling detail is what happens after someone crosses. People who return often describe time behaving strangely, minutes feeling like hours, or entire days disappearing instantly. Some say they felt watched by entities that were neither human nor animal, beings that observed but never approached, as if studying those who slipped in unintentionally. A few testimonies go further, claiming that the entities were not hostile but curious, as if we were the anomaly intruding into their world. And if the gateways truly exist, then they may not be rare. They may be part of a natural system, ancient, hidden, and still functioning beneath our reality. The most controversial theory suggests that governments already know about these dimensional weak points. Some restricted zones in parks align perfectly with sites of known disappearances. Some trails are abruptly closed with vague explanations. Some regions remain unsearched despite decades of missing persons reports. Why? What exactly are they trying to contain or protect us from? The truth may be simple and terrifying. Humans were never meant to walk into these places, not because they are haunted, but because they are doors. And once a door exists, something can always step through it. Whether these vanishings are accidents, crossings, or encounters with forces beyond our understanding, one thing is undeniable: the fourth dimension may not be a theory. It may be a frontier, and some people have already crossed it. If you want more deep investigations into the unexplained, subscribe to @The Mystery Vault 777, because the truth is never where you expect it.